Hi, welcome back to the onboarding guides. It's Simon, of course, and in this video, we'll look at the content manager that is part of my content and client OS. And of course, it is part of the complete Life OS bundle. So in the last video, we did look at the client OS, but in this one, I'm going to show you how to use the content manager to manage any kind of social media, from video and media production, YouTube videos, newsletters, the whole shebang. In fact, there's already a big bunch of channels that you can work with. The template is also absolutely packed with information about how to do these things like create YouTube videos within the templates. So if we just jump back to the content manager, take a little look in here, you'll see that there are a bunch of templates. If I open up the YouTube one, you'll see there's a ton of advice around scripting, topics, and other useful resources that are listed within it. So this thing is also a very useful thing for you to find guides to doing the things that it helps you do. Now, I'm also going to demo how to use the content manager with the CRM that it links to. And that is notably with regards to working with sponsors and partners. And this is particularly good for those of you that might be either making content for clients, for example, here I'm making something for Jason Bourne, or whether you have people paying you money to sponsor the content that you do make. So that is a really useful thing. We're going to look at this process from end to end. First of all, let's take a little overview of the dashboard. As I showed you in the previous video about the client manager, this obviously works within the standalone client and content manager with its own system that is very similar to Life OS, just doesn't have the kind of personal habit tracking, all of that. But we're actually going to demo it as we did before in the bundle, because I think most of you probably will be using this within the bundle and it kind of works the same way. So if you click on Content Manager, first of all, I just show you that there are a link to all the kind of live content that's there in this view. And then you've got other links to jump to. But if you just click through to the content manager, you will see we have a number of views. We've got the channels page. That is, think of that as kind of projects to tasks, what our areas are to projects. In content creation in this template, it kind of goes channels are like the project, which you link tasks to from the task manager. And then content sits below that. Each of these can be used as a template. You can number them. So for example, if we go to YouTube videos, we can see that we are kind of numbering videos. You know, this one could be made into video 2 and we can kind of see them all within there. And then you, beyond that, are able to view everything in a couple of places. New ideas from your inbox, these buttons will drop into the new ideas area. Anything you've marked as live that you're currently working on will show up within this view. And of course, you can edit views as you wish to make them look how you want them to look. And we also have a content Kanban, which will show you the process of what's where on the scale of process. And then we have views by the specific group. So things like podcasts, YouTube videos. So really, you know, probably most people aren't going to use all these. I've just made them so you can ignore the ones you don't need and use the ones that you do need. So remember, this is built for everyone. You don't use everything, as always with these larger templates. So you can view them in there, and then you'll obviously be able to see published content down here, which is all served by the content database. And we've got a nice, as always, a charts and metrics view. So you can see content by client. You can see published by channel. There's a ton of little views that I've created, stuff that's in, you know, progress to do. And these are all very helpful. And finally, we've then got a content calendar, which allows you to view material that you're creating by date. You could change the date by moving it around, which is nice. Yeah. But you also might want to view things by sign-off deadline. So I might say that I want this signed off with the client by the 9th, and I want it published on the Friday, the 11th. And what's really cool about the calendar is we can also open it in Calendar. So if I click open in Calendar, you'll see down here, it adds the content database. And this allows you to see content within it. And if you want to remove them, you can just remove it from the list and it'll disappear. But it's a nice way to be able to also schedule your content against what you're doing. So here you can see one of my videos that I'm putting out around this, which is how to use forms to supercharge this system. So that's pretty cool. And you can obviously click through and open it in Notion. So that is another way to look at it. Finally, if we jump back to the main homepage, you'll obviously also be able to create new content ideas within Quick Capture. And we also have this new content idea generator that I've added since the 22nd of November. So if you downloaded any of these templates before then, you won't have this because Notion hadn't released Notion Forms then. But good news, there is a video that came out on the 22nd of November that you can watch, and I'll link it below if you want to add the forms to your system. It's really easy to do and a great way to learn how to use forms and build the one you want, right? But you can add them there, and of course you can add them in the quick drop inbox area. You just need to click here and you can find content ideas that will be dropped in. And I believe the filter on that is that it is an inbox idea. Those are probably the key views. There is one more actually. If we go back into the content manager, we should jump to the content and client OS view, and there's pipeline views, which are worth considering for content because this will show you your content where it's related to a client. So we've got a client pipeline and a collaborator pipeline. So for example, if you were saying had guests, you would see them in here, or maybe there's an editor you're working with, you would see it in that view. Clients that you might have commissioned or have sponsoring a video, say here a sponsor, you will view within that. And within that client view, I can see under content within the client, which is a good example. But if you want to know more about that and you skip the last video, there's a whole breakdown of how this section works in the client OS video. And finally, there's two other things on the list here, which is Twitter. Now, Twitter, or X as it's been labeled recently, or not so recently, does have an integration using Q for Notion. And I've linked a little explanation here where you can click through to view Q for Notion. And this essentially allows you to schedule Twitter threads and entries directly from your Notion database. And to support that, therefore, I have created a Twitter database, which allows you to drag and drop things, drop stuff in here. You change the status essentially to scheduled or publishing, and set a date, and it will publish it on that date, which is rather good. So that's why there's a planned date and then one which will send it. I'm not going to go into loads of detail on this because it's kind of explained by Q for Notion, but all you should know is it's got its own database system. And on that note, for Twitter, if we go to my channels, the one thing, as with anything, there is a template for channels here. The only one that is different to the template is the Twitter one, because in that, I've also made sure that the tweets database is dropped within it. So you can set tasks related to it if you want to do that. Okay, let's now jump onto how you might come up with ideas and then process them if you're creating content. I'm going to give my example, which is the one I'm doing the most, which is YouTube. So first of all, it might be that I create a new content idea. I'm not going to use the form because some of you may not want to use that, but this would essentially drop ideas into the database and it would turn up within the database view. But I would like to go to new content idea, click that button, and you can just come up with your idea. So let's call this one how to use Notion layouts, the new feature that I will also make a video on to update these views. You would link it to a channel. Now this is going to be a YouTube video. So we're going to click YouTube. I'm going to select the sign off date. I want to sign it off next Tuesday and I want to publish it on Friday. And you can, if you want, which is quite nice to schedule it good, is include a time. So I normally publish on a Friday at 5, and I like to just give it like a kind of 2-hour window purely so that I can see it on the system when it's on calendar view. Now you'll see there's these two status views. So status really just kind of follows essentially the invoicing and live element of this process. So publishing and not publishing. So these are options just to support invoicing if you are linking a client or sponsor to it. If you're not, you would just kind of go to live and then you would go to completed and ignore the rest. but we're going to leave it as that for now as an idea. There's a load of buttons here that you can use if you want to kind of, make that easier, and that will show up in different views. But the most important thing is I'm going to click the template that it needs to be. So this is the right one, new video template. That would probably as well, actually, if we just undo that, you'll probably find that the channel, if we remove the channel, when you update the template, it will automatically add the channel. And you'll also note that by adding the template, which is probably the first thing you should do, you'll set up the channel, but you will also see this view turn up. So it'll fill that in, and then you'll see the number. They're always started as 999. And then what I would do is number them for the number of content that I'm on. But for now, I'm just going to leave it because it's an idea. Now, this paid service element will just come up if there is an invoice status. So you would generally set an invoice for it. So you could also create invoice from this button. But for now, you'll see we have a ton of stuff within these ideas that we can use to plan out what we're doing. Pretty simple stuff at the moment, but you can see you can also link references to an idea. So maybe I want to do that, but I would use these buttons here to do that. So let's say that I want to just see what references I have around Notion. We can go search for Notion, and let's say that the power method is a useful thing. Just an example I've got. I can link that in, and then I would see that under related articles. So I've got that there if I need it. There's also in some of these templates useful resources such as an editing checklist for you to work through on the piece of content. But what the main thing I'm going to do here is simply under this is potentially say, could do this, and it will kind of give you some titles. It's quite nice if you've got Notion AI. Anyways, there we go. You have linked it to the channel automatically. Now, these are the other things you probably might want to do. Do you want to link it to a client or collaborator? Well, let's say we're going to do this with Notion sponsoring us as an example. So I'm going to find Notion that we've got set up, and I'm going to create an invoice. So we're going to click create invoice. The invoice will be created, and we're going to say Notion sponsorship fee. You can number the invoice. For example, we're going to set the amount. Let's say that they're going to pay us, I always put this in as my example, $2,000. I'm going to link it to the client. So I'm going to find Notion, add a category, which is sponsorship. There you go. And you can see that it's you can see this from the other system, but we can link it to that. And maybe you want to add it to a budget, which might be a channel budget if you wanted to. So why don't we create a budget which is YouTube sponsors. I'm going to click through to that, and I want to link that to a content channel. Just shows you a kind of way of doing this. And there's lots of ways to do it. Just kind of follow through and make the links, link it to that. So we've now got a budget for YouTube. I think that's enough for now. Let's just, we've got a bit lost there. Let's just go back to our new ideas. And you'll see we have our idea in here. If we open it up, you can see it's now marked as paid. We've got the invoice to invoice set up and ready to go already. And there's an idea there. But at the moment, it's not live. So what we will probably do here is make it live. So when you make something live, you would click make live, and it will disappear from the ideas. So this could just be a place to capture ideas and drop them in. And then anything you're working on will turn up in here. And now it's made live, I want to number it as video number 3. It's going in order of creation. Now in this view, you will see we've got the dates. You can wrap any of these columns as you wish. And then we've got the process we're on. So this has been booked and planned. So this one, let's say we're maybe developing and writing, and this one is editing. So you've got an example of that. And then there's your main status. So currently everything is just live, and you can see the clients and collaborators that are linked to it, any planned fees. You've also got this process board. So as you're working, you're able to see these reports, which is really nice. If you want to add any views to these, you can do that. So if you go into properties, let's say I just wanted to add one of my buttons, such as published to invoice. That might be a useful one. So if you forget to do it, you can either be dragging these along You might want to show groups so that they are available. Let's say it was this. You might say that we've worked on that and it's now in editing. Can it move along? Let's say we then published it. I'm going to click publish to invoice. It will disappear and it's in invoicing. And you can see it's now current status is updated to invoicing. We need to make sure that we would send that invoice. It says it needs to be invoiced. So we get these reports and it's staying in progress here because we still need to invoice. Let's say now that we've published it, and I'm just going to jump into here and show you it as an example. There it is. If we now open this in Notion Calendar and go to the day that we want it to be published, you'll also see it listed as it needs to be within that view. Pretty cool. You can align it against other stuff. There we go. Let's go back to the content manager. Now, it's staying live because it needs invoicing. So we can go, okay, I need to invoice that. So we would open the piece of content up. There is the invoice. Let's click into it. And this is how you would invoice for a piece of content, let's say, in whatever form it was. I would go through. Here is the invoice. You would then click share it with a guest. Don't turn them into a member or you will have to pay. Just make them a guest and you're good. Or you could choose to export as a PDF. And note that you can set your invoice date, due date as, let's say, 14 days after the publishing. It would be here. We know it's due in 22 days, right? You can change the status to invoice issued. And then if we now jump back to the content, we can now say it is published and invoiced. It updates it. Once it's completed and paid, you just click completed and paid. It disappears from that view and you will see it under the archive of everything that is published. Really simple. It moves it out the way. Now you might, on that view, if we just undo that, you might not like it this way round. So if you do feel like actually when something is invoicing, I want it to be in published, you can just adapt that very easily by going into the filters, just click in here and remove published and invoiced. Save that for everyone. And then down in this view, you might want to adapt this filter to be include that. The other option might be to simply go into the status view, edit the property, and maybe just move this down into published and invoiced. And then you'll kind of see everything, I think, will just be as you need it to be. Could be a nice way to go about it. So if we just check the filters, yeah, that's probably the cleanest way to do it. So if you do want to adjust so that publish and invoice is in the complete section, just go into the main status view down here, edit the property and just move publish and invoice down into there. I'm actually going to do that for all the templates from this point. I think it's probably a better view. So there you go. Those are the views: live, in progress, published, and then you've also got your charts and metrics. That's kind of it in terms of using this to manage content as you go. You can invoice clients, you can manage the content as you go. And if you want to start planning content, another option might be to go to the content calendar and just start doing it in here. So for example, let's say that you're going to kind of plan out some Instagram posts. Maybe I want to do one here. I'm going to make it an Instagram reel and we're going to call it Why Notion Rocks. And you could just start really simply by dropping them in as you wish, like this. I don't know, this is probably a bad Instagram example, but you can drop them in. There's that. Let's just move that up. There's the number. You can number them and you'll see them as you need to see them. And then when you go back to your content manager, new ideas will just be listed in there and you can make them live as you wish. So this could be a way to plan stuff. If you did want to adapt it so that anytime you added something to the content calendar, it was always made live, you can just make a filter to that to hide stuff that's just ideas. So you would need to go to status and just make it so that everything is that. So anything that is not an inbox or idea would drop in. So if we save that for everybody, when I now add a new item here and do it again, Great Notion Workspaces, for example, you can kind of plan it in as you might want to see it, but then you only will show it in the planned thing once you make it live. So that would just then be about like turning that into live. And then if we go back to the content calendar, there it is, you would then see it. But I don't think I personally like that. I'm not going to leave it like that. So we're just going to delete the filter. And then you've got what you need as an example. A couple more little details for you to consider, and that is really how you might choose to manage your content day to day. Personally, I wouldn't underestimate the power of this channels view, because you can kind of do work on channels, and you'll see within the system we have a review system within it. So it means that, you know, any of these you don't need, just clear them, you know, hide them, filter them out, whatever you need. Probably the best way to do it would just be to mark them as archived if you don't want to use them. But let's say that you were working with YouTube. Going into YouTube from the channels view allows you to see all the content planned out within it. And you're then able to kind of work from that view. I think this is a nice way to do it. And then you can also see the tasks that you're linking to that setup. Now, it could be an option that you might want to create an automation or a button that every time a new item is created, a set of tasks are created. There are some advanced use cases that maybe I'll make videos on in the future. But if you do want to do that, there's lots of ways to do it. You could simply start by doing a button and setting a set of new ideas within that. It depends on your expertise, but certainly working within this to add tasks, manage them for the channel is a really good thing. You can set your review date, how often you want to review your channel. That's all really good. You mark it as reviewed and it will update to the next day. And it's worth saying that I did a bit of an update recently as well to this, which is there is a weekly review page where your content channels will also be shown. So this is a nice place as well to find what needs reviewing and just, you know, mark them as reviewed once you've looked at them, and they'll disappear from that view, which is very nice. Great, that's done. For example, you could do that each week, mark goal as reviewed, and know that you're up to speed. Great way to keep an eye on everything in your system. Now, finally, you may want to publish a website portfolio. This is probably the only other thing that is within the kind of content area. This is a template where, I think I've talked about it in another video, where you could update all of this, you know, as you want, whoever Claire is, adjust this, adjust all of these things as you wish. Just publish this as you like, but it could also be a place where you might want to show some of your videos. You could link them into here. But this is a really useful place to capture inquiries. If you wanted to, you could even create yourself a form for content suggestions that works a little bit like this idea generator. Have that button placed on the website, essentially copy this and put it on the website, and then people could recommend you ideas, which I think is rather good. Let me finish off by demonstrating this. If you've not got this in your template, make sure you go and check out my demo of how to use Notion Forms with this template. I published it on the 22nd of November. So when you're watching this, if you downloaded this template before then, you won't have it, but I will show you step by step how to add it. But what's great about this is to add new ideas. So I could say, oh, I've had an idea for a video, which is Notion. How about that? What channel would it be for? I'm going to make it for a newsletter, and I'm going to frame the idea. Great, how about that? I can link it to a topic in my system. So this is linking to the relation if I wanted to. So content creation training, for example, link to any references I've got. What have I got on this subject matter? There's nothing on there. Maybe I don't want to use it, so I'm going to leave it. Any clients I want to link it to? No, not on this occasion. Is there a fee? No. Submit it. It will drop it in. You can email yourself a copy and all of that. But then that would mean that if I go back into my content manager within ideas, you would then see that idea pop up. and you can probably add a section there for like who submitted it, so you could see submitted things, and you could even set that so that, you know, this had its own filtered area of like, you could duplicate this, make it proposals from your audience. Really nice idea. So something to consider when you use this. So that is the content manager and the client manager. I always find with these videos, I've got to kind of balance going into too much depth versus going into too little. And I hope this covers what you need it to cover. If you've got any questions or anything you'd like me to make a video on beyond this, just email us at notion@bettercreating.com, and we will do our best to find some time to share more around those things. But hopefully this gets you going. Something else that's worth checking in the content manager is I've also got this little link to a load of information down the bottom, as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, guides of how I started YouTube, little bonus content down there. If you like the look of it, you can always check it out. Yeah, I think that probably covers everything really. I will say one thing though, if you want to understand how these templates work, or if you want to update them, this is probably the most important part for you to make this your own. Make sure that in any database there's a template. Remember, you can adapt it to your needs. You click the little arrow next to any view of the database, go and find it. Let's say it was a newsletter template. Click the dots and then click edit. And then within this, you could then update all of this to be what you want it to be. So if you have a certain way of writing or things that you often put into it, you could do that. Add resources to it so you've got it, you know, as you need. And maybe this is going to be a useful way for you to update how this thing operates. You know, you can move that up to there if you want it to be further up, so on and so forth. So something to consider if you do want to update the templates. And really the same probably goes for channels. If you wanted to update channels, go into the channel database, edit this and create it. Now, if you are creating a new channel that isn't one of these, you also should remember that when you go in here, you want to make sure that content that links to it shows up in this view. And to do that, therefore, you'll want to do a couple of things. One, you need to create a new template, probably by, let's say, duplicating LinkedIn or whatever it was. And let's call this one, let's say it was Substack. You can change the icon to something you want it to be. It doesn't really matter what it is. The thing you'll need to do is make sure you link this to the new channel that you've created. And then that means that anything that turns up will filter into that channel. Make sense? So you create your new channel, and then you would need to make sure that this content template links to that channel in the setup. Then everything you add will work. You might also want to create a new one of these, a new property with 999 written in it, that is like all the rest of them, you know, product, podcast, and then you can number them. And that works by making sure that the property visibility is always hidden when empty. So that's why I put 999 in the one that links to the correct template. So there's three things: create the new channel, create a new content template, which links to the channel through here, and then finally duplicate one of these, name it Substack, for example, and add 999 into it, delete this one, and then you'll have everything you need for that to work. For now, though, I'm going to move that to the trash because I think the other option would be just to rename any of these, right? So the other option, if you're not going to use one of these, probably the quickest way would be to rename that template, rename the channel of products, and then rename the column with the numbers in it, and you're good to go. Great, that is everything I can think of to tell you about the Content Manager. Make sure you do go and check out that Notion Forms video, and I will also soon be releasing, if not already when you watch this, a Notion Layouts guide to show you how to kind of organize the look and feel of your pages as you want them to look for any database items. So in your Content Manager, if you jump into a piece of content, this area here can be adapted by simply right-clicking on any of these, customize layout, and we can start to rearrange how this whole system looks. So I'm going to be doing that to the template, sharing a video on how to do it. So if you want to do that yourself, you will be able to. Amazing. Make sure to like this video if you get a chance. That would be lovely. Leave a comment below of what you made of it and what your favorite features are, and I will see you very soon. Bye.